Hi everyone. So this video has been very highly requested. We are going to be looking at Peaky Blinders once again, specifically seasons 2 and 3, and a bit of season 1. We are going to explore and look into the use of character writing on the show and what makes it so strong. This is a follow-up to my first Peaky Blinders video where I analyzed Thomas Shelby's character and what made him such a smart character. If you haven't seen that yet, go click on the top left-hand corner here. The card will show up. And watch that first, then come back and watch this video. And of course, spoilers ahead for up to season 3 of Peaky Blinders. I had previously said that at the heart of this show is this conflict between ambition and loyalty. The show is essentially about what happens to a family as they try to build their empire and ascend into power, with a large focus being on Tommy's struggles and the consequences of his actions. The show, through its characters, its scenes, its dialogue, is trying to answer a fundamental question. What is ambition's effect on loyalty or vice versa?
We're planning an expansion. I'm taking premises in London.
Tommy, it's a funeral. Business can wait.
Polly.
And I had a lot of questions about what does this mean. Really, we can illustrate by looking at the two sides of Tommy's life. The side before the war and the side after the war.
It's been different, since the war.
Yeah.
We don't see a lot of what Tommy was like before the war, but there are a lot of references to how Tommy has changed. What he saw at the war, what he saw in those tunnels made him a completely different person. He was a sergeant major, decorated for bravery, and willing to sacrifice everything for his country.
Mr. Thomas Shelby. The report mentions he's a war hero.
It is pretty evident that he placed a high value on loyalty. He cared less for himself and more for his brothers and the country that he was serving. He didn't make decisions for himself, but rather the benefit of winning the war. Essentially, loyalty suppressed ambition for him. Once he returned, he realized that the country he so faithfully served turned his back on him.
We went through hell, our king. Walked through the flames of war, write all this down, and now we're being attacked in our own homes.
And thus begins Tommy's evolution and ascent into power. In an interview with creator Stephen Knight, he had this to say. From the beginning, we're introduced to him as an amoral and morally switched off character whose values have been destroyed by seeing so many beings destroyed in the war. His only concern is to make sure that he and his family are okay, but gradually that has been challenged. And Knight is largely talking about season 5, but we see his loyalty to his family has always been challenged. His ambition always tests his loyalty to his family. And when I say loyalty, we can look at it from the perspective of, would he stand by his family's side no matter what? Would he be willing to make sacrifices to his ambitions if it meant putting his family's best interests first? And the answer is often no. He defies Aunt Paul's orders countless times. He lets Michael get involved in the business. He pushes John to marry without his consent, and he messes with the Russians.
Arthur, he warned me against getting involved in Russian business, and you were right.
And a lot of these decisions were business motivated, never family motivated. He often doesn't make sacrifices for his family. Instead, he makes compromises. Yes, Michael is involved, but he's working on the legitimate side of the business. We're going to marry off John to the Lees to create a business alliance because we don't want him marrying Lizzie. And he promises Grace instead of walking away from the business. It's,
I promise. No guns in the house. And Charles will never see one.
and this splits his loyalty between choosing what's best for the business and what's best for the family. Over the course of seasons 2 and 3, the empire is no longer recognizable as the Shelby Empire. It's the Thomas Shelby Empire. Slowly, Arthur and John become his tools to be called upon whenever Tommy needs something done. Polly's influence over the business weakens, and Tommy's trust, his loyalty in his family, is strained.
Our enemies know everything. I need to know who spoke about business outside of the family. Your wife, Arthur, or Esme, get Getting cash for cocaine now, John. All of a sudden back in the family, either. Hey, that's a surprise.
I was speaking to a commenter on my previous Peaky Blinders video, Hey Felix, and it made me realize that Tommy's ambition is rather paradoxical, because his ambition to build his business challenges his loyalty to his family, but the end goal of the business is to make his family succeed. So if the business succeeds, his family succeeds, and shouldn't that thus prove his loyalty to his family? Well,
This is who I am! And this is all I can give you for what you give me. For your hearts and your souls.
and I don't think that the show is necessarily saying being overly ambitious is bad. I think it simply just reveals that being overly ambitious can be misplaced. Tommy is desensitized morally to the world around him, and you can see that his view on loyalty is distorted. It's non-emotional, and it's highly material. Another one of the series' most prominent through lines is how it depicts trauma, with a number of the main characters dealing with post-traumatic stress in some way, shape, or form. The rise of the Peaky Blinders can be seen as built on this legacy of trauma, of course, with Tommy's newfound ambition stemming from his damage during the war. His drive is a direct result of his trauma, and so trauma has largely shaped who he is.
While I was away fighting, remember I learned some things, such as you strike when your enemy is weak.
Over the course of the show, trauma can be seen as a catalyst for transformation, where individuals become so emotionally or physically damaged that they become unrecognizable from their former selves. It strips away their innocence, desensitizes them, and cripples their morals. If you take a look at Michael, he is probably one of the best examples of how a character can devolve over time. He began as a child living with his mother who yearned for much more, and then every act of violence he's involved in chips away at him. He gets incarcerated and beaten, and the instant he's free, it's not joy or relief or even fear on his face, but damage.
The screws told me why I've been freed. They told me what you did. They thought it was funny. Maybe it is.
In season 3, he grabs a gun for the first time, and you witness the ecstasy just wash across his face. He feels powerful, and he points it at Arthur. This scene becomes so tense because Michael now becomes unpredictable.
I'm not a f***ing kid anymore.
He's turning from the son that Polly wanted to someone more like Tommy, almost as if she's losing her son again. And all of this culminates to him officially losing his innocence when he murders the priest, taking revenge for a childhood trauma that we later learn that he had. On the other hand, Aunt Paul takes a bit of a different path with her trauma. She starts off incredibly strong, almost an adversary to Tommy's character. She ran the business for 5 years, but you realize that she's struggling with the loss of her children. And when she reunites with Michael again, her biggest struggle becomes maintaining his innocence. She deals with the trauma of freeing Michael from prison, being sexually assaulted by Inspector Campbell, and then having to kill him later on. And this affects all her personal relationships, especially the one she develops with Ruben. And later on, Tommy so easily convinces her that he can't be trusted. All her personal and intimate relationships are destroyed by violence and trauma in one form or another. She breaks down. She loses her status as an adversary to Tommy.
The painting was wrong.
She was too sure of herself.
Then we have Arthur, who sees himself as a changed man at the beginning of season 3 after having met Linda. But Tommy and Linda constantly struggle for Arthur's allegiance.
In future, it's not always right to listen to Linda.
Tommy attempts to revert any change or healing Arthur may have gone through by pulling him in to, at first, drink again, and then kill a man, and then... Not all trauma is necessarily violent. The moment of transformation for Arthur is when he breaks the trust of his wife. The look in his eyes is not that of pleasure, it's more primal. It's all an attempt to get Arthur back to the way he was. I also want to mention Grace's death near the beginning of season 3. And although I believe she deserved a much better ending than she got, you can obviously see how her death has pushed Tommy's behavior and made him make uncharacteristic decisions that were not typical of his personality. You can debate how much her death actually had an impact on his character. Of course, he still grieves for her, but it almost seemed like the writers were using her as a tool to give Tommy a weakness. In the end, it all still goes to show that the violence isn't nonsensical on the show. Stephen Knight had said, every act of violence on this show has a consequence. He's likely referring to external consequences, but every character who deals with violence and trauma goes through an internal metamorphosis all the same. Once they step off that ledge, they can't go back. Violence and trauma shape who they are. It's how Tommy builds the Peaky Blinders empire, and in a way, it's also how he maintains control and puts other characters in their place. Michael slowly becomes Tommy's right-hand man, and Paul no longer is seen as an adversary to Tommy, and Arthur is no longer a puppet of Linda's. So it's even more fitting that the end of season 3 culminates to this moment where all the characters start revolting and leaving. Tommy has a way, just somehow, coincidentally, to put them all back in their place. Thanks for watching. Hi, everyone. Thank you all so much for the support and growth that my channel has been experiencing in just the past couple weeks. I never thought I'd be making video essays for anybody but myself, so thank you. If you want to continue supporting me and supporting the content that I'm making on this channel, you can follow me on Twitter and Facebook. Links are in the description and somewhere. They'll be somewhere over here. I also have a Patreon that I'm just starting out, so consider becoming a patron there. I have different tiers that you can check out. Again, links in the description and somewhere on this video here as well. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'm always open to video ideas, video recommendations. If there's a show, a character, or something else that you just want me to analyze, break down, talk about, let me know, and that may become a future video. Bye for now.